today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
I hear from people as I'm talking to them, there's this sort of like, well, maybe this is as good as it gets, and maybe I should just, there are lots of unhappy lawyers, and maybe I should just accept this. And I don't think you have to.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Elena Deutsch. Elena is an experienced executive coach and career consultant who founded Women Interested in Leaving Big Law, or WIL for short. She's devoted her business and energy to help women lawyers leave big law firms for a career and life filled with greater control and satisfaction. Elena, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here.
Wonderful. Happy to have you here. So how did you get the inspiration to start Women Interested in Leaving Big Law?
I have been coaching for about 12 years, and the whole time I had been coaching, I'd always attracted some lawyers to me. My background is actually in public health and training and learning and development. And when I went back to coaching school, I had a master's in public health already. I just loved it. I fell in love with coaching, and it felt like home to me. And like I said, I had always attracted some lawyers to me. And my dad was a lawyer, and I had seen it take a toll on his physical and his mental health. And I decided to forego law school and pursue a career path in nonprofits and then public health and then coaching. And I had a successful coaching and leadership development firm with a business partner, and we were coaching in law firms also. So I was seeing some people individually and some people on behalf of law firms. And for some of the law firm clients, it was to help them transition out of the firm and create a great alumni relationship. And for others, it was leadership coaching for rising women associates. And when I would ask them what their goals were, and if they wanted to make partner, they would lean into me and whisper and say, "Can I really talk to you about that?" And I would assure them the firm wants them to be achieving their career goals, whether it's here or somewhere else. And I successfully helped a couple of women transition to great in-house roles at startups. And the second time that happened, kind of like right in a row, I had just turned 50 that summer. My mom had died a couple of years earlier, and I was on vacation with my family. We were in Cape Cod, and every morning this idea was waking me up. I had thought about doing career transition work with lawyers a few years earlier, and then my business took a different turn. And this idea went from simmering on the way back burner to a full boil. And I would get out of bed every morning and start to write, and the word will came out of my pen. Women Interested in Leaving Law came out, and I thought, will. And ever since then, I just felt like I got bit by this bug, and there's a huge need. And there's so many women who are suffering in law firms and in their legal careers, and unnecessarily. They're so bright and hardworking and dedicated, and they're somehow got kind of stuck in a place where they're unhappy and they don't see a way out. And I've been dedicating, like you said in my intro, my career to it and having so much fun. And it's been so meaningful and rewarding, and seeing the results my clients are getting.
Wow, that's so great to hear. What are some of the particular challenges that many of the women that you talk to who are in big law now are facing that really makes them feel like they're not doing really what they want to do with their lives?
Yeah, I was just speaking to someone today, actually, and it's one of the biggest challenges is the unpredictability of it. They have almost no control over their schedule, over their lives. I was on a call last night. I'm running a group with some of the women who've been through some of my programs and need additional support to help them keep the momentum going in this career change. And she's got school-age children, and she hadn't been home all week. They have no predictability, and not zero, but very little. And the firm culture is when you're needed, you show up, you do it, you stay late, you work long, long hours, and you don't really have say over the kind of work you're doing as well. So many women, like I said, they're, crackerjack, super smart women, go to top law schools, work super hard, and they're given work often that they don't find interesting, don't find meaningful, don't find satisfying. So those are just a couple of the things that are keeping them feeling just unsatisfied, unfulfilled. And then with the kind of hours they're working, they have a really hard time just basically taking care of their personal life, let alone trying to make a career change when they've invested so much of time, money, and there's a lot of prestige in being a lawyer, especially at a big firm. And there's a narrative around law firms that, it's very important, it's very prestigious, and it feels to them often when they're inside that it's hard to give that up.
Right, I see. So it sounds like it's not necessarily that they don't find satisfaction in practicing law. It's really just the culture and the whole, either the combination of the image and the work expectations around big law in particular.
Yeah, and some of them don't find satisfaction in their work. And they went to law school and they were challenged in law school, but then often the work of being a lawyer itself is actually quite repetitive, and for many it's boring. And for some, it's quite pigeonholing. They get very expert as they rise up in a narrow slice of law. And then they feel extra stuck because they don't feel like they have transferable knowledge or skills.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, they're women who make a lot of money and have a tremendous amount of opportunity. On the other hand, many of them have described it to me as feeling stuck on a hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm. When did you start this new business venture, and what kind of activities were involved in getting it started and up and running?
Yeah. So like I said, I was involved in a business partnership with a wonderful, one of my best friends. And so I came back from that vacation and I told him, remember that thing I wanted to do? Well, I've got to do it now. And I think there was something about turning 50 and, having my mother gone that it just felt like now was the time. So I spoke to him about it and I started focusing my portion of the business on it. And so it entailed building a website. And I knew one of the things I wanted to offer was an online course. So that's a key component of what I offer clients now. So I took a class. I took an online course for how to learn how to build an online course.
Oh.
So I did that. I did a tremendous amount of research and talking to women who've left big law, women who are leaders in professional development in the law, and people who were kind of a little underground. It was sort of hard to tap into women who wanted to leave big law, but hadn't yet. So I managed to do one-on-one interviews with over 25 people to make sure that there was a need for this, and then, what people wanted in it. And I had my toolbox of, career transformation tools that I knew worked with all the lawyers I'd worked with previously and other people, not lawyers. The tools work with anyone, but I just happened to particularly love working with this group of people. So I then took all that and I saw if there was appetite to pilot it with me. And I got 5 women from across the country. There was one woman from Seattle, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York, and Minneapolis. And I took them through a pilot and they got great results and they loved it and gave me great feedback. And then I really went forward and built the online course and have been taking women through it now since. So I really kind of started working on it in the fall of 2016. And then my business partner and I amicably separated. I separated from my old business and he's continuing to run that. And I officially started Will as its own LLC in January 2018.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was kind of breakneck, but it's been super fun.
Yeah, well, that's great. And it's exciting to hear the positive feedback and the change that you were able to make, even with your very first offering around an online course.
Yeah, it was virtual. The first course was virtual, but not online. So I did it remotely using a virtual platform called Zoom, where I had conference calls and I had the material developed, but we were all looking at each other on the screen and it was a really positive experience. So I kept going.
That's awesome. And you have a background in training, coaching, executive leadership. From that background, what are the most important skills that you use to grow and run Will?
Before when we were chatting before you started recording, we were talking about training development, and that has served me so well because I know how to design learning experiences. I focus on what are the knowledge and skills and attitudes people need to have in order to make a change. And it really connects back to my public health training and my training in health behavior and how people make changes in their lives. So even though it seems like coaching lawyers seems kind of far from my public health training work, to me, it feels very connected still. And it's just more on the individual level rather than a population-based or larger group level. So that's serving me well. I just think coaching is really about listening to people and being very present for them. So I think that's something I've been doing my whole life. And I remember, my kindergarten teacher telling my mom, I was the one that kids would go to talk to when they had a problem. And I think that's kind of my essence. And that's what my dream and my favorite thing to do is help clients tap into what's that thing for them that they love to do, that they've always done. And how can they pull that out and build a career out of that or weave it into their work so they are having that true essence part of them met.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that transfers well. It almost doesn't matter what the specific population is that you're working with. If you have that coaching background, you said it gives you the ability to listen and to really help guide people and I guess ultimately help them find their own ways and connect them with resources and help them learn about themselves so they can be happier in their work and their lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super fun, super satisfying when we hit that sweet spot.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the biggest challenge you've faced in either launching or running Will, and how do you address that type of challenge?
One of the challenges is being a solopreneur, right? It's a term that if you're in the space is familiar, but if you're not, it's about running a business on your own. And, here I am talking to you through a computer. And I spend a lot of my day doing that. And I'm an extrovert and I love being around people. So figuring out how to run a business on my own. And remember, I had a business partner for 7 years. So he and I were splitting tasks and, and I had someone to bounce ideas off of all the time. So kind of the isolation is one of the biggest challenges. And how I've dealt with that is I join programs. And I continue to take online courses so that I am growing my skills and learning marketing because I never learned I didn't take any marketing classes in college. And marketing is really, communicating with people and helping solve their problems. So it's super important for me to connect with the women I want to serve and help who want and benefit from this service. So learning marketing. So I join groups, I continue to take courses, and then I reach out to people and I build connections. And I've created my own masterminds with colleagues who are working on their own businesses. So that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges, and just kind of riding the ups and downs of that and knowing that every day I get to do this thing that I'm loving to do and being grateful for that. There are down days and there are up days, and not letting either of those throw me.
Right. That's great. And that's something I hear from other entrepreneurs or people who are just starting their own businesses is that, it's just them. So not only are they doing everything and learning how to do everything on their own, but they really don't have those colleagues or coworkers who are around them all the time to bounce ideas off of or to help guide them and get their opinions on. So I think that's awesome that you've created your own mastermind group. I read about that as a best practice, and I, occasionally hear about people trying to put them together. But I think that that's really wonderful way to build that core group of people who are supportive and who can help guide and help kind of point you in the right direction.
Yeah. And one of the benefits of coaching is talking out loud and having other people listen to you and reflect it back. And I have a coach, but now I want to move pretty quickly through some things. So I've set up a weekly mastermind, and we're going to do it for 2.5 months with a couple of other people. And I'll keep you in mind next time I'm setting one up and see if you want to join.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, I'm just curious a little bit more on masterminds.
Yeah.
Do you have like structured agendas or particular topics you talk with when you meet, or how does that work?
So we're doing what sometimes is called a sprint. So I'm going to do, like I said, we're going to do 2.5 months, so almost a quarter. And we're each pick our own goals that we want to work towards. And it can be, a revenue goal, or maybe I want to get on 6 more podcasts. That could be a goal I'm working towards. And then, so if it's 3 of us, we're just splitting the hour 20 minutes each, and maybe, and we ask for what we need. So let's say I just want to talk out loud for 10 minutes. I don't want any ideas. I just want you to listen to me. And then I want some feedback. So we each get to use the slice of time, however, is going to really serve us.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Very good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you've gotten some really great feedback from your clients so far. What would you say has been your most meaningful success story with a client so far?
I have a couple that I just, for anyone, you or anyone out there who gets to coach people, it's such a beautiful relationship, and I feel so honored to coach people, and it's intimate, and it's not therapeutic in the same way of therapy. We're not going into people's pasts. I'm not talking to them about their mothers, but it is very intimate and supportive and loving. And so one client who I just adored recently sent me an email that she got a great new job, and she's going to be the health policy director for a U.S. senator.
Wow.
And she's thrilled to leave the firm where she just never felt like she fit in. It was not the right fit for her. I have another client who's working on making a transition, and I consider this a huge success because she realized what she wanted to do. She never thought she was going to leave the law. She thought she might go in-house, but she ended up, through the work we did together, discovering she has kind of 2 options. One is doing real estate on the business side, real estate development. But the other is really where she wants to go, which is to work in operations for a winery in Northern California.
Wow.
I know, right? And when she told me that, I just got chills all over my body when we hit on that. And it's so true for her. She's a Northern California farm girl. She has expertise in land use and water use. She's got clients who own vineyards and orchards, and it's a totally feasible move for her. And I'm just cheering her on as she's taking steps towards that.
That's great. So yeah, it sounds like there's a real diversity of other opportunities that lawyers can pivot to if they are leaving, if they just have that guidance and coaching to make the change.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mental barriers to overcome first, to give themselves permission to want what they want, and to overcome fear that, they're not going to earn any money, that they're not going to be able to pay off their loans. Of course, there are practical considerations, and I coach them through figuring those out and making a plan. And sometimes what it is working towards what they really want while they're continuing to work in big law or as a lawyer. And maybe they're taking a class, or they're doing some very intentional networking and building relationships and doing informational interviewing. So it's not about, making a huge leap right away. Again, that's, I think the most ideal outcome is when people really feel they're moving towards something that feels so satisfying, and they're excited every day to wake up and do it.
And I'd imagine that it's not just lawyers who feel that pressure and worry that they won't be able to make a living or survive at their standard of living if they transition and do something that they love. So it's really great to have someone there who can help them think through that transition and keep everything in mind that they need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear from people as I'm talking to them, there's this sort of like, well, maybe this is as good as it gets, and maybe I should there are lots of unhappy lawyers, and maybe I should just accept this. And I don't think you have to. For most, I'm forging a path of my own. And I am married and I have financial support from my wife, and I am growing this. And, one of your other questions are about goals of your business. Like, I want to grow this into a thriving, successful business that helps me create the life I want. And I want to help other people do that for themselves simultaneously. So I think there's so much possibility in the world right now. And, the internet has given us this amazing ability to connect like this. Everyone owns their own printing press. Everyone owns their own film studio. We all carry that around our pocket now. It's just amazing. And if you're smart and educated and hardworking and believe you can do it, and I think the beliefs and the mindset is so fundamental to making any of these changes and taking a little risk. And it's hard often for lawyers to take that risk. So I work with them on making those baby steps and believing that they can, and then taking some action and keeping going.
That's great. It's like as you're helping your clients find their passions and make them real, in a way, you're also helping yourself build the business and the clients and all of that business that you really want to build for yourself as well.
Absolutely. I want to be able to travel more. I want to be able to send my kids to college and not worry about, paying those tuition bills. I want those things for myself too. And I feel like by living that and working towards it, I don't want to be like, I'm your inspiration, but I want to be walking the walk and talking the talk and doing my part. And even if I'm not a lawyer, and even if I don't have the same pressures and experience, it's a human desire. And I think it's I don't know if it's a modern one, probably is, to want to have that fulfillment and satisfaction. And, we see people all around us doing it. I was just reading an article of the woman who owns the milk bar. She started working with David Chang at Momofuku, and now she's built this amazing chain of because her passion was making cookies. She's built a cookie empire. So it's possible for her. It's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were talking about the goals for your business. So I know you were mentioning your virtual class that you started out with. Are you offering, or are you planning to offer, other types of coaching or training services that would be part of Will?
Yeah, so I have a whole lot of ideas for it. One of my strengths, one of the things I do with clients is take them through the Strengths Finder assessment, so they can identify their top 5 talents and really leverage them so they become fully embodied strengths. And one of mine is ideation. So I have to keep a little notebook of all the ideas I have that I can't quite act on at once. But I do have some running Will, both as an online course, but it has live one-on-one coaching with me, and it has group office hours where they get to connect with other women who are working through the material at the same time or on their own pace. And there's no ahead or behind. People join and begin when they're ready to make this investment in themselves and take those first steps. So that's my Will step-by-step program. And then they can add on more one-on-one coaching. I've got a couple of different opportunities for that. And I also want to do some workshops, some live workshops, because I see women stuck in these pitfalls. So I've identified 7 pitfalls that keep women lawyers stuck in big law and some ways to get out. So that's the trainer in me. I need to get in front of live people in a real room and work together in person.
Awesome. Yeah, those sound like great services, kind of a nice wide range of different support services for people. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about women interested in leaving big law?
So I have a wonderful website, and they are welcome to come. And I have some great free resources. I blog regularly, and I've got something called the 5-Day Curiosity Challenge, which is a short video series, 5 short videos each day, around 2 minutes each, to help women. I hear so often they say, well, I don't know what else I could do. I have no other interests. And it's just something that they've buried. And so the Curiosity Challenge is a chance for them to explore some other things that they do have interest and kind of help unearth those. So that can be found at my website, which is www.womeninterestedinleavinglaw.com.
That sounds great. And I think that curiosity is really one of the foundational places to start when you're looking at a potential change, and it helps you get in touch with, as you said, all of those interests and things that you've been thinking about other than law that you may have buried or put to the side. So that sounds like a wonderful way for people to reconnect with what they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a place to start, is with curiosity, because there's so often this pressure of like, well, what is my passion and what does feel like home? And, I just want to get another job. Like, so, and I work with people and I meet them where they are and what their goals are. But curiosity is there's so many clues in it. And it's just a place of less pressure than, find your passion or find your purpose. So I do love starting there as well.
Very good. Is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or anything that they can either help or support you with?
So I think if you are, or if you have a friend or a loved one who's a woman who is miserable in her legal career and life, please share this with them. I would be happy to speak with them, point them towards the website, again, womeninterestedinleavinglaw.com. And just, they're not alone, and there is possibility, there is openness, there is fun in figuring this out. And I would love to help them with that.
Wonderful. So I will also put your website into the show notes of our podcast so that people can find it there as well.
Great.
Thank you, Elena. I think that's a wonderful note to end our podcast on. I was really excited to learn about your new business venture and all of the wonderful coaching and training and help that you're providing people who are really struggling to find their way, the thing that truly gives them passion. And I think it's wonderful that you're there to help guide them and help find themselves again. So thank you so much for sharing your story on my podcast.
Thank you, Carolyn. And thank you for doing this amazing, beautiful podcast and getting a chance to hear other people's stories. It's so fun, and I'm really enjoying listening.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player so you won't miss any episodes. You can also find all the show notes and links we discussed in this episode at our website, www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.